Imagine standing alone at the edge of the world where the horizon is nothing but frozen ocean. The wind screams at minus 50 degrees and icebergs tower like colossal, silent monsters. Here, one woman stands against the unforgiving wilderness. In her hands, she grips a heavy rifle, her finger frozen near the trigger. Wrapped in thick, hand-stitched animal skins, her eyes pierce through the blinding white mist. She is not an explorer by trade, yet she is surviving the impossible. This is the incredible raw story of Ada Blackjack, the sole survivor of the doomed 1921 Wrangel Island expedition. Her journey was not fueled by a thirst for glory, but by the most powerful force on Earth, a mother's love. Born Ada Delutuk in 1898 near Solomon, Alaska, Ada's childhood was marked by early loss. Raised in a Methodist mission school in Nome, she learned to read English and master the delicate art of sewing, unaware these skills would later save her. At 16, she married, but her husband was abusive and ultimately abandoned her. Ada was left completely penniless, and her only surviving infant, Bennett, suffered from chronic tuberculosis. Her heart broke as she struggled daily just to keep him alive. Ada walked 40 miles to Nome, carrying her sick boy. Desperate and broke, she had to place Bennett temporarily in an orphanage to secure his medical care. Reclaiming and being reunited with him became her single burning obsession, driving her to find any work. In 1921, an opportunity arose. Explorer Vilhjalmur Stephenson offered $50 a month for a seamstress to join an Arctic expedition to remote Wrangel Island. Ada, desperate and terrified of polar bears, joined solely to save her son. On September 9, 1921, the ship sailed. Ada was the only native and the only woman accompanied by 4 young, inexperienced men and Victoria, the expedition's tiny kitten. They carried only 6 months of supplies, assured the island was rich with game. Landing on Wrangel Island, the men cheered, but Ada walked to the gravel beach and wept. Watching the ship vanish into the gray fog, she felt completely isolated. Yet, remembering Bennett, she wiped her tears and threw herself into her work. The first year passed, and the team eagerly awaited their scheduled relief ship. But the summer of 1922 came and went. Thick, impenetrable sea ice blocked all passage. As the cold returned, they realized they were stranded, and their food was running out. Stranded in the brutal Arctic winter, hunger gripped the camp. Stephenson's promise of abundant game proved false. Ammunition dwindled, and the temperature plummeted. Weakened by starvation, team member Lorne Knight fell gravely ill with the painful and agonizing effects of scurvy. In January 1923, out of food and desperate for rescue, Crawford, Maurer, and Gala made a fateful decision. They took the remaining sled dogs and set off across the frozen Chukchi Sea toward Siberia. They vanished into the howling blizzard, never to return. Ada was left alone on the desolate island with only the dying Knight and Victoria the cat. Though suffering from early scurvy herself, she shouldered the monumental task of keeping them both alive for months, acting as sole caretaker of the camp. With no survival training, Ada had to teach herself. She practiced shooting a heavy rifle, hitting a tin tea can. Her diary proudly notes her first successful shots. She cleaned the guns, set traps, and began hunting to secure fresh meat. Knight, frustrated and bitter in his helplessness, verbally abused her. Yet Ada remained patiently and tirelessly devoted. She gave him the best cuts of the game she hunted, dressed his bed sores, and warmed his freezing feet with heated bags of sand. The island was teeming with massive polar bears, Ada's greatest fear. To protect herself, she built an elevated wooden observation platform to spot them from afar. She kept a loaded rifle mounted directly above her sleeping bag, ready for any danger. Ada's resourcefulness was astonishing. When a storm destroyed the expedition's boat, she constructed a new one herself out of driftwood, canvas, and animal skins. In this handmade skin boat, she successfully hunted seals, braving the treacherous icy Arctic waters. On June 23, 1923, Lorne Knight passed away. Ada was now completely alone. Unable to bury him, she built a barricade of heavy wooden boxes around his cot to protect his body from wild animals. Only Victoria the loyal cat remained. For 2 more grueling months, Ada survived in absolute isolation. Suffering from worsening scurvy, she kept a meticulous diary, writing of her pain, fears, and undying hope. Every single day, she repeated her promise she would make it home to Bennett. On August 20th, 1923, a ship broke through the heavy, blinding fog. Rescuer Harold Noyce landed on the beach. Ada stepped forward, dressed in a self-sewn reindeer skin coat. She had survived 2 years on Wrangel Island, the sole human survivor. She reunited with Bennett, used her wages to successfully cure his tuberculosis, and lived a quiet, dignified life until her death in 1983. Her grave in Anchorage reads, Heroine, Wrangel Island Expedition. Her diary stands as an eternal testament that the most powerful engine of human survival is not the search for adventure, but the quiet strength of a mother's devotion. The diary is preserved today in the archives of Dartmouth College Library. Although her story was heavily exploited by Stephenson and her rescuer, Noyce, for commercial profit, with Ada receiving 0 royalties from books written about her. For more incredible stories of human triumph, hit subscribe and join us here on Professor Aha.